So this movie is going to go off as one of the biggest flops of the year, and for good reason. It was not very good. This film has a release schedule that was originally intended to be March 2016, and then Warner Brothers changed it, and they put Batman vs Superman there. Then they moved it to October of 16. Then they moved it to January of 17, and finally to October of 2017. This is because they had test markets for this film that didn't really much like this film, and then they changed them. They spent an additional $15 million on reshoots for this film, and it's not even going to make that money back. This film was hilarious, and it's one of the best comedies of the year. The only problem is it is not a comedy. It is a drama. But the actors were so stiff, and I didn't care for any of them, which I just, at very inappropriate times, just started bursting out laughing of how bad this was. I laughed more at this film than I did for the Lego Ninjago film, and I thought the Lego Ninjago film was a great comedy, and this is a drama. So this film is not going to do good, and the question is, should it have done better? What went wrong with Geostorm? Well, the director was Dean Devlin. He hasn't directed any other movies before. This is the first movie that he directed. He wrote a lot of movies before. He wrote Universal Soldier with Dolph Lundgren and Jean-Claude Van Damme. He wrote Independence Day, the 1998 Godzilla with Matthew Broderick, and Independence Day Resurgence. And those movies have not been that well received, and now he's directing a movie. He also, besides directing, he co-wrote and produced Geostorm. So I have a lot of respect for guys that can triple task. I mentioned Charlie Chaplin a lot on the show as one of my film go-to guys. If you're into silent film cinema, highly recommend Charlie Chaplin. He's got some great films, The Kid, Modern Times, The Great Dictator. I just got another one the other day, which I haven't watched yet, but I'm really excited. Limelight, where he's doing everything, composing, writing, directing, producing, editing. But Dean Devlin is no Charlie Chaplin. And maybe if he would have delegated a little bit, had a different editor, have a different producer, we would have got a better film. This film also should not have had this big of a budget. $120 million. This film felt a lot like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. Something in lines of Sharknado. Sharknado's budget is $2 to $3 million. For the first 5 films, they've each been between $2 and $3 million. The effects are a billion times better than Sharknado, but the acting is probably better in movies like Sharknado or Sharktopus or the other shark movies on the Sci-Fi Channel. And Dean Devlin should probably not have started with a $150 million movie as his first directorial debut. I'm looking at a guy like Colin Trevorrow, who made Jurassic World, which is a good movie, not a great movie, but his first movie, Safety Not Guaranteed, was excellent. And this guy was supposed to do Star Wars Episode 9, but then he had conflicts with Kathleen Kennedy and the studio heads. So Star Wars Episode 9 is not in his future. But you have to start off with a smaller film, so you know about characters, you know about staging, you know about storyboardings, to kind of get the grasp of the industry before you do a big budget movie like this. And like I said, the acting in this movie was very wooden, it was very stiff. The characters in this movie, they have a lot of characters that I don't recognize, I don't even remember their names. The one main character, Jake or Jack Lawson, see, I don't even remember the name of the main character, Gerard Butler's character. He is the guy that's like, I am the best guy in the room, I am the smartest guy in the room, and he does not come off as a likable guy. And if your main character is not likable, your movie is not going to do well. Also, the biggest star in this movie is Gerard Butler. He was in Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen, 300. He was the dad in How to Train Your Dragon, and that is probably his best movie, is How to Train Your Dragon. So this guy is not a big action star. We're in an age where actors do not sell movies, but this movie did not help when its biggest star was Gerard Butler. if you get a Dwayne The Rock Johnson, this movie probably would have made 20, 30 more million dollars in its opening weekend. And directors don't sell movies, but you should have got anybody else besides Dean Devlin. And I don't want to criticize him too hard because I've never got off my butt and made a movie, and he did. And some people will like this movie. There is an audience for this movie. I do not know what that audience is. That audience is not me. And this movie is getting commercially panned by critics. It's got a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, and movie tickets are expensive. Not everybody has the most awesome thing in the world, Movie Pass, where you sign up on a website, they send you a debit card, you can see a movie every day in the theater for $10 a month. That's how I can see all these movies and talk about them on this show, is because I have Movie Pass. Not everybody has Movie Pass. And if I didn't, I would not have been happy wasting $8.50 to go see Geostorm. So this is not a good movie, but it is a bad movie in the best way. The effects are amazing, but I didn't get the movie I wanted to get. This movie is all about this Geostorm, which is like the end of the world, but you don't get that big Geostorm. You get a lot of little other smaller storms, and they're not little, but when it cut to that, it felt like when The Simpsons or Family Guy cuts away to a joke, and that's just a small part of this movie. This movie is about Gerald Butler's Jake Lawson, and he made this satellite that controls the weather. It's called the Dutch Boy, and the U.S. government is handing it over to the United Nations, and he's against that, and a lot of people in the U.S. are against that, even though China and the U.S. and all these other nations came together to build this. So 2 weeks before they're going to hand it over to the international people to control this, Afghanistan has everybody freezes, people are frozen stiff, they want to know what happens, they think, I built this, there's no way this can malfunction this bad, somebody must have hacked this. And the rest of the movie is trying to find out who hacked Dutch Boy. And they're trying to do misdirection, but it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, that guy did it after like 2 seconds of meeting that guy, and I was right, and I didn't care about any of the characters. I'm going to mention Rocky IV for a little bit. There's a line with Ivan Drago after he knocks out Apollo Creed, and he's like, if he dies, he dies. And that's how I felt about this movie. I did not like any of the characters, and at the big ending where they're like, stuff goes down, I'm like, I don't really care if they live, I don't really care if they die. And they try to make you like this character. He has a daughter who he promises he will come back to, and he says, I will make it back for you, I promise. And he's got a brother who he hasn't really got along with, but as the course they find discovering that they do have more similarities than they have differences. And with these two characters, they're trying to make you like this guy by saying he has a family, by saying he's a nice guy, though he comes off like a jerk for 99% of the movie. And everybody in this movie is so wooden, they're so stiff, they're being overly dramatic, and it does not help this movie at all. I'm laughing at how wooden and how stiff these characters are. And I shouldn't do this. Like I said, I laughed so much at this movie of how bad it was. And that is a testament to this movie. It's one of those that I can see 10, 15 years down the line, you get a group together and you watch Geostorm, and you talk and critique and you laugh the whole way through. And this movie was horrible, but it was horrible in the best way. And they added this mystery of who's causing the satellite to fail. But then there's also a third act twist, which was ruined in the trailers. And I'm like, if you're going to have something like that, don't put it in your trailers. So that was another negative thing. But I think Geostorm could move on to be a cult classic someday, just because it is terrible. And if I was going to have to give a rating to a movie like Geostorm, I'd give a 4 out of 10 just because this movie is not good, but you can laugh at how bad it is, and then it makes you enjoy it a little bit more.